strugglers, but we will kick off. So, welcome everybody to the first of a series of webinars through the Opportunity Northeast 1 Agritech project. So it's a project supported by Scottish Food and Drink, Aberdeenshire Council, and delivered by SAOS and SAC Consultant on behalf of Opportunity Northeast. So the idea of the project is to demonstrate and validate the benefits and practical application of smart innovative technology to farmers as a route to improve the sustainability in Scottish farms. The project's been running for a number of years and has looked at different technologies, both in the arable and in the livestock applications, and to try and bring smart solutions to farms that don't cost the earth to implement. So tonight's webinar is really based around machinery management. There's another one next week on Wednesday the 28th at the same time, and it's going to look at livestock health and some of the tech that's been used in that kind of area, and at the farm at the demonstration farm at Titabuti. So our speakers tonight, we've got Clive Blacker from Agritech, who specialises in the Exatrek system. We've got David Barron, who has deployed that system on his farm at Nether Aden, and we're going to show you some of the information that we've gathered there. I'm going to say a little bit along with that. And then we're in from Highland Autosteer, who's going to speak a bit about AgOp and GPS and how that can be used on farm to give cost-effective GPS solutions. Just a few housekeeping things. If anybody's got any questions, pop them in the chat, and we will try and come to the questions at each of the sections, and we'll try to round up everything at the end. And I think that is about it. So we will start off. I will stop sharing. We'll start off, with Clive Blacker, and I'll stop sharing. And if Clive, if you want to share your slides, we'll run through a bit about the Exatrek system.
If the technology's working, you should be able to both hear me and see my slides.
Yeah, it's working fine, Clive.
Excellent. Thanks, everyone. Good evening, everyone. So, as a quick introduction, I'm from the Vale of York. We have a family farm in the Vale of York, and we're contractors. We look after about 400 hectares down here, where we predominantly now combinable crops, growing mostly cereals and beans as a break crop, not so much oilseed rape due to the pressures of flea beetle. I'm very much also into data and precision ag, and I've been involved in precision agriculture since, well, I first started yield mapping in 1998. We got one of the first class yield mapping systems, and been working with that sort of technology ever since, to the point I diversified out the farm in 2004. I help out on the farm occasionally now, but I tend to let my brother get on with the farming, and I do more of the technology. And one of the bugbears I always have as both a farmer and somebody who likes to help farmers and understand data is trying to get data off machines and record it properly. And what I'm going to introduce to tonight is the Exatrek system, which is a system that's been developed in Germany, specifically for automated record keeping. It's a product I'd wanted to develop myself a long time ago, but when I saw somebody else had already done it, I thought it was easier to work with them than reinvent the wheel. So I've got a few slides I'm going to go through and show you what the system's about and what it does. So the sort of first challenge that we've got is that I think we're very much in changing times. we're in a position at the minute where greenhouse gases are certainly high up on the agenda. That said, you read the news at the minute, and I think the only agenda at the minute is Donald Trump, and it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks at the minute. He's comparing most of it and causing no end of havoc, I think, in the process. But certainly when things calm down, I'm sure greenhouse gases will come up again. I've been frustrated for years of working with technology that it never speaks to each other and that it can be difficult to get data out of different machines. And then if you do get them out of machines, joining them together is a real challenge. And I've often been, impressed and excited by the opportunity, this data insight future where we can interpret and put lots of technology and systems on farms and they all talk to each other into a common system that really allow us to have future insight and ability to manage our farms in simple ways. The challenge is that we're probably still not there yet, and we're a bit overwhelmed at the minute still with technology. And the other aspect is that data is becoming more complex to capture and it serves more masters. So we need it for our compliance, we need it for record keeping in terms of costs, we need it for margin analysis, but equally we're starting to need it for the concepts of climate change, the amount of fuel, fertilizer that we have used, where it's gone, and for protecting our soils and for evidence and traceability for more and more of the government schemes that are becoming available. And equally, that information is really valuable for helping us manage fields more effectively as well, because we can make decisions on where's the best bits of fields to farm and where's perhaps not, if there's an alternative scheme. So I'd looked around at different technologies over the time, and as I say, I came across Exatrek. Basically, what it does is it supplies all my needs in terms of gathering data. So they're simple units that we install on the tractors. They give me precise machine oversight, so I can monitor every tractor or every vehicle I've got on the farm in one way or another, and depending what technologies on that machine and what capabilities it has will depend what data I get off it. So ultimately, I can get all of my agri data off it if it's compatible. There are still some devices that aren't, unfortunately, but the majority of things with isobus and yield data and things are in standards, and we can now get that. It saves me chasing my brother and chasing for paperwork, and particularly for chasing him to get my combined yield maps at harvest if I've done some agronomic trials that I need the data from, or knowing where he's put things. And also helps then manage the data that we need to supply all these different actors in our food supply chain. The beauty of it is that it gives me the fleet management across all the systems, and it's independent. There are some great trackers and systems out there already that will allow you to monitor machines, but they don't necessarily monitor everything. You can't necessarily get implement data or know what activity the machine's doing without drilling down further or having some other paperwork. The beauty of data is that once you've got it, you can analyze it. So it gives you all the activity data very simply. It allows us to automate our documentation. And I'm actively trying to get other companies to consider using APIs for this, because it would literally automate some of the record keeping that you've got when you spray. Agronomist comes round, he gives you a recommendation sheet. He's always frustrated because he never knows when you've done stuff. He may have some recording software that you could embed that data into. This system would allow you, if you've got it on the spray, to tell him when you've been in the field and which fields have been done. So you can then link it with the actual ag chems that have been applied and hopefully have your full traceability. And the ultimate aim is that we want to improve our efficiency. We want to be better at what we do and become more efficient and reduce our costs. How the system works is it's quite simple. It's got a telemetry unit that you can see in the screen here. It's in the top right corner. That basically plugs into the tractor CAN bus. It's got two CAN buses that it uses within there. In that it's got a CAN bus that will speak directly to the tractor, and if your implement's isobus, it will then also speak to the implement and gather all the machine data directly from the isobus or ISO implements. It's got a different number of communication systems within it. So it's got a GPS receiver for GPS positioning, which it will use if it can't find a better one. So if there is already a better system, a better GPS, for example, you're using RTK on the tractor for auto steer, and that's all on the CAN bus, then the system will pick that up and use that because it's more accurate than its own. It's got a cellular modem in there, so it will send the data autonomously straight to the cloud. And then it's also got Bluetooth scanners, which work with different Bluetooth beacons. And there's two sorts of Bluetooth beacons that we can use with the system. There's stuff that we can put on our key rings or in our lunch bags for identifying operators. And the other is identifying the implement. And what that then allows us to do is it allows the beacon on the implement of the driver to automatically tell the tracking unit what it's doing, and then we can associate the costs effectively with that to allow us to trace each job independently without anybody having to write anything down. And that's where it very much differs, I think, from a lot of other systems, in that it's got this Bluetooth capability to pick up the activities that it's doing. The advantage is obviously it reduces you wasting time. You don't miss any of the activities, and the beacons are automatically picked up. The secret is to have the beacons on all your implements. The challenge is that they're not always installed on them all. What it allows us to then do is gather all the data into one place. So it allows us to track our machines in real time. We can allocate costs effectively to it, to both the tractor unit, the implement, and to fuel. It allows us to take the best advantage of our operating engine performance, so we can monitor what we're doing, and hopefully we can improve machine performance. In some cases, I've seen people actually in large fleets remove tractors out of the system because there's too much idle time. It allows all the data to be corralled, and we'll probably go through this later, without any driver intervention. So you get a full diary of operations that's occurred. So you can either view this by activity and what the tractors are doing, so the main tractor units, or you can do it via operations, which show you what activities happened in each field. And from that, you'll get a track of where it's been, and it categorizes the operation into different work states, whether it's working, whether it's turning in a field, whether it's waiting in the field, transporting on the road, waiting on the road, or getting stuff ready in the yard. We can track all of that independently and pull all that together. Another neat feature that's come into the system is remote data transfer. So you can actually create variable rate files and send them straight to the little modem in the tractor. And there's a little lead comes out the bottom of there, and we'll plug in the side of your variable rate terminal. So as long as we know what terminal's in there, you can then set the system up in the office so that the files that you might want to create for doing a variable seed rate job, or variable phosphate or potash applications, if you're doing variable rate, directly to the implement in the right format without actually transferring memory sticks. It also means then that you don't have the headache of finding memory sticks aren't formatted properly. You can do that remotely in the office, so it makes it a lot easier for the operator. It will then allow you, if you've got the ISO implements, to create coverage maps. You'll get a map of absolutely everything. It tracks all the ISOBus data, and that will allow you to see coverage. It will see when boom sections are turned off, and different application rates, so you get a full traceable record of where you've applied all your plant protection products or fertilizers or manures. So really, really useful from a perspective of seeing what's happened and where. It allows you also then to analyze and track performance, so you can compare different tractor units on the same implement, so you can compare different tractor units against each other, all in the same format, which is a real challenge at times with other systems. The data isn't consistent. Joining them together makes it hard. So this really allows us the opportunity to really then start and get into the nuts and bolts of what's going on. The system also logs a lot more data. What I've got here is an example of my own combine at home on the farm. We run a Class Trion combine. We were persuaded by Class to get their telemetry, but I didn't like it because I didn't think it was logging enough data. So I did some analysis comparing the Class data card versus the Class telemetry versus the data collected out of the Exatrek system. And essentially what the Class system delivered was 376 points a hectare. The data card allowed me to get 555 points a hectare of yield points, and the Exatrek system was collecting over 1,300. Now, you might wonder why that's important. I'm quite interested in the precision of what we do, and I don't want to lose any of that precision. So the more data I can collect, the better analysis I can provide in terms of understanding variability in field and how that variability influences production. So, the Exatrek system, I was really surprised at how much more useful data that I got out of that, and how much more beneficial for me that is for analysing some of my ongoing trial work. The system's very flexible. It collaborates with lots of different people. There are other third-party users of it now. So Class are actually using it in Germany in certain cases to enable telemetry on vehicles that they don't have in their system. Equally, as so are BASF, there's different branded versions of the system available. So it's very flexible and many more. There's an open API, and it basically allows us to collect data and transfer it to other people with your permission and your control. And that's what I'll cover in this sort of presentation. I hope that's enough time for you. And there's my details if you need them. And please don't hesitate to contact us. At that point, I'll stop sharing and hand back to Dave. You're on mute, Dave, if you're trying to say something.
That would help. Thank you, Clive. That gives us a good introduction to the Exatrek system. So you should hopefully see that Exatrek PowerPoint again. Is that right? On the screen. So just a little bit about Nether Aden. David Barron kindly allowed us to deploy some of the Exatrek kit on his farm. So Nether Aden's a mixed beef and arable unit. It's based just on edge of Mintlot, but it's got two other blocks a little bit further away. Is New Holland machinery, and we've got a GPS Exatrek system on both of the tractors and on the combine as well, sending data back. And we've also got a selection of the Bluetooth beacons that are on some of the pieces of kit, so that the recording of the information is as seamless as possible. So you see the machinery list there. David runs a traditional plough and one pass system, and he's also got 150 suckler cows and sells all the progeny as fat as well. So you'll see some of the pictures just in the next couple of slides of the bits of kit in action, and then we're going to look at the web page that collects all the information in the dashboard to show you some of the information that's collected during the process. So here we've got, that's going wrong. Right, you should see the combine now, a picture of the combine if it's right. So it just shows you how the transponder is basically just plugged into the combine, into the diagnostic port of the tractor. Quite simple, didn't take long. Clive came up and fitted them. Literally took minutes to fit them to most of the tractors. Very easy, and they just stick to the cab. And then in the bottom right-hand corner, you've got one of the Bluetooth transponders, which you basically just set up to say that it is on a piece of kit. And they can be moved around, but basically once they're on, they're on. And here they are on three pieces of kit. So on the left, it's just stuck in the headstock of the plough. And as soon as the tractor hitches up, it recognises that it's connected to the plough and then starts recording for that information. The middle one's on the sprayer. Again, it's just stuck on the front of the sprayer, somewhere out the way where it's not going to get knocked or disappear. And then the third one is just on the CLC cultivator just in the headstock. So as soon as the tractor comes up, it recognises that that piece of kit is on the tractor and it's ready to go. So I will stop sharing, Clive, if we show the dashboard and we can run through some of the activities and show some of the information that's been gathered so far.
No problem. Hopefully you can see my other screen. The wonders of technology. Has that come through?
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, brilliant. Excellent. So this is the sort of landing page that you get when you come into the system. How the system works is it's very reliant on having field boundaries in the background, and I'll show you. I can show you some examples of where we haven't got some today as well. Basically, how the system operates is that it knows the tractor's location. It will then know the location or the implement that's behind it from the Bluetooth tag, and from there it basically records everything that it then sees and does. Whether that be in a farmyard, so you can set locations to a particular yard, or you can then, when you go up the farm track and into fields, it will then record data specifically to fields. Each of the fields obviously has its own unique ID, as most systems do, and it basically then records it. And you can see there's different coloured boundaries here. We can set these up for different jobs and different clients. So that you can record data for contract farms, perhaps separately to the data that you would have on your own farm. And that allows you to do better analysis with the data. And you can see here, if I click on the tractor, it'll show me exactly where the tractor is. It gives me a bit of statistics about when it was last seen. It'll give me the data on the type of tractor and the module that's within it. And then if I look on the dashboard to the left, it'll tell me how much fuel's in it. And basically last time it was seen in the tracks. And you can go through and you can pick on any tractor and it'll show you exactly where it is from the dashboard. So it's a very clear, intuitive system. The system then will break down the activities that you do on a daily basis. So you can look at either daily activities. So you can see there's been 2 tractors active today. The smaller New Holland's been doing some feeding with the feeder wagon. So you can see it's done a couple of hours feeding this morning. And then again this afternoon. So it's recorded those autonomously. And then we've got the ploughing events that have occurred in the field. This data gives us the ability to actually then drill into the data, so we can actually go into the data and see the period that the tractor was operating. It gives us a map showing where it's operated. And you can see different coloured aspects to the map. So where it's green is where it's been working, where it's blue is where it's been turning, and it breaks all that down into a pie chart. So it'll tell you how long it's been waiting, how long it's been turning for, if it's been on the road at all for what it's been doing there, and how much time it's spent working in that work activity. And you've actually got the ability as well to drill down and look at the different work rates. So you can see here, for example, I'm looking at the fuel of the tractor. So you can see this period here where it was sat waiting, burning a couple of litres an hour, doing something here. And I don't know what time of day that was. It should show us where it is. So if we scroll to the map and we go around there, you can see something's happened in the top. You can see as you go along the field, so you can actually see where the fuel use was at a particular point in the field. And it's interesting, obviously, I don't know how big a hill there is on here. There's less fuel going one way up the field, I think, than there is the other way. So you can see the fuel use is going up and down as the tractor's going up and down. The systems will log lots of different data. So you can look, for example, at wheel slip, and you can compare different factors together. So you can see where you've got no wheel slip or where you might have higher wheel slip. Different things going on in that sense. So you've got the ability to compare any of the different values. You can compare any 2 of them within the system, so you can see what the RPMs were and fuel rate or what have you. So it's entirely up to you what you want to compare one to the other. You can then turn the colours off so you can see them. You can see them individually then. So you can see there's variances in RPM. You can see there's been a bit of slip in some places. So it gives you the ability really to get into the data if you really want to get into the nuts and bolts of it, to see all of that. In this instance, these machines have only been in one field or one area today, but it will break that down into operations. So I'm just looking at a set time period here. This is then looking at in September, looking at different jobs that have been going on. So you can see, for example, this particular field, NA19, then there's some activity being going on with the JCB, which doesn't have a tag on any of the buckets or things. So it could be livestock feeding or something from that sense. Versus here, for example, we've been drilling in this particular field. So we can click on that. We can see the activity we can see where the field is, and it will show us some of the basics depending on the season we've got selected to what's actually happened within that particular field for that job. And for example, there's a cultivation activity that's happened in part of it. You've got the ability to choose different features, so you can see the drilling activity, turn the cultivation off. It gives you the ability to see where the things have happened in the field, so you can look at different coverage maps within the system, so you can see where it is. And the same sensor parameters, we can look at fuel rate. We can apply that because there's no data down here. This is all red. If I turn the tracks off, you can see where the different fuel uses are. So there's a part in the middle of the field that's using less fuel, where the other parts of the field here are using slightly more fuel. So you can have a full record of all your fuel use by area, by map. Some farmers actually use some of these maps with fuel rate and torque, for example, to do variable seeding with, because it's really quite handy. It will pull out different soil textural zones. Sometimes they do get a bit on slopes, they get a bit lost depending which way you're traveling with the slope. But you've got the ability in there to drill through your different layers and see all of that data. Essentially, what this is doing then is just giving me information on this particular field. So if we're looking at the field, we can see all the different operations that have gone on, and we can choose different time periods that we can view this in. We can either set these by seasons, or you can choose particular dates. So you can look through a period. You can set a period that you want to, your cropping period, for example. So if we wanted to view everything from the 1st of October through to the end of September next year, we can just choose those periods. The system's obviously going to have a think about that while it does that, and hopefully it will reload everything. He says waiting patiently. Not going to do that for me at the minute for whatever reason. But the idea would be then what you've got within your field is the ability, you can see how many total hours you've spent in the field, the total amount of fuel that field might have consumed, and the total CO2 emissions that you might have then from your carbon emissions related to the fuel use. You do have the ability when you're spraying or fertilizing to now attach different products. So if we knew, for example, there looks to be 2 applications of something on there, you can add a resource to the field in here. So you could say, for example, it was TSP you were applying. If you knew what time, if it was 2 applications and you knew the time difference between the second application, you can split that application, and you can then tell it the other application that was then done. So if I drop the time down, you can see there, for example, we can then create a second application event with that, and we can put another value to it. We can put the values in there in terms of what we want to measure and the units, so you can then record how many kilos that you might have applied as well. So there's basic ways in which you can do basic record keeping here. The majority of this would be perhaps best done in your crop recording. This is an emerging part of the software that is now quite new within it, and this is an evolving area as it works in other areas. The other ability you've got is then to look at all your implements, so you can see everything that's gone on with a particular implement. So you can do that by season. This is looking at the sprayer. As you can see, the sprayer spent all its time on one machine. It tells us the total amount of time it spent. It tells us the average fuel use per hectare, the fuel use, the hectares an hour it's doing, and the average hectares an hour, and the total performance. it'll break down what the machine's done in terms of working time in the field, how much time it spends on the road, and how much time, in this case, it's got preparation. This is the filling time, and it's not unusual for a sprayer to be working a third of its time preparing or filling for a third of its time, and then a third of its time going between different places. So you can get a clear view of everything that's gone on and where that's occurred. It's staggering how much time things spend on the road actually when you start analysing that. You've got the ability with other machines to compare different things as well. I think the cultivator it's been used on 2 different tractors. In this particular case, you can see the operating hours and the different fuel uses per hour. Normally there would be some performance data in there, so there's something we haven't got set properly in the system that's not allowing it to see the effectiveness. But what you could see in some cases is the bigger New Holland might be using more fuel in terms of litres an hour, but the performance might well be double. That's not showing us that in there, but it's something I'll have a look at and find out why it's not. So it gives you the ability to drill through all of the different systems. We've got your fertilizer spreader again. That's only been on one machine, but again you can see it spends an awful lot of its time on the road. Now this actually could be a little bit deceiving. I'll show you why that may be. If we go back to the activities, if I go back to a more recent fertilizer spreading activity, if I can find it, I think it was the 5th of October. Past it. Was that the one? So this is an example of a job where it's recorded all the data, and you can see we've been in and out of 3 or 4 fields. This is where there could be an error with some of the time it's spent in fields, because unfortunately we haven't got the field boundary in for this other field in here. So it thinks that's on the road because there's no field boundary. So there's just a bit of tidying up that we need to look at in some cases. But you can see in the field here where it thinks it's been turning, where it's been doing the application, where it's gone on the road, where it's been loading back in the yard. So you get a breakdown of that. So it can be a bit deceiving, some of these, if we haven't got all the data in properly. If your spreader had got isobus on it, you would then also have all the application rates for these, and you'd be able to break that down. But essentially what you also get in here is a breakdown of the total fields, where it's been, the hectares per hour it's achieved in each field, and what it's been doing. There's also other statistics that we can pull out of the system. So we've got the ability again to set different date ranges. You can look at the whole operations by the total farms, and then you can drill down into each individual job. So I've just chosen seeding there. You can see how many hours we've spent seeding in the dates that we've selected, how much time of that's working, how much of that time's filling up perhaps in the field, on the road, turning in the field, and preparing and waiting on the road. So you get a full breakdown. You can look at different operation hours, the average fuel consumption. You can do that by individual system, or you can do it by machines or operations. So you can see the different fuel uses, average fuel consumption here, by threshing, for example. So the combine's using 17 litres an hour. When we're drilling, we're using nearly 16. So you can see that on average. You can look at by area or the amount of CO2 that each one emits as well. So the combine this harvest has emitted 5 tonnes of CO2 as an example, and then a breakdown of all your operation costs. This is an evolving area that's developing as well. So this is going to get broken down into cropping. So we should be able to look at different crops and analyse by crops, and equally by customers. So we'll have the ability to look at a contract farm and bring all the data out for the contract farm, what's being done on there. This is the total work that's been done. You can see each of the individual operations that's been done on there, and you can highlight where they were done and view all of those as well. So that's it really. That gives you a quick sort of whistle stop tour of the screen. I don't know whether you want me to cover anything else on here, Dave.
Yeah, there's a couple of questions coming in, Clive, actually. So the first one is, what is the feedback from users on the biggest impacts Gardener's data has had on farm?
Um, a lot of people are staggered at how long vehicles are idle and not operating. When you can actually put numbers to it, that frightens some people, and it really does bring home how much, how we're not as efficient as we could be. Um, the second area is how much fuel certain operations are using. Um, I had one customer who changed the tractor that he was doing a certain operation with because while it was using, I think, 0.2 of a litre more an hour, its work rates were significantly higher. So he just swapped them over. He said there's no reason we should use one or the other, but because I got more work out the other tractor, it cost me less to run it, and I got it done a lot quicker. Um, the other aspect is that when you put it on machines that you wouldn't normally track, stuff like like JCBs or load alls, they spend an inordinate amount of time all over the place, and they're never costed for properly on farm, because they're in and out of fields doing all sorts of different jobs and feature different jobs. They're very much utility vehicles. It's a lot of people have been surprised at how much work they do and how regularly they're using them, but how much time they're not actually charging for the use of them.
Yeah, it's certainly. Yeah, we'll speak to Dave in a minute, but it's certainly pulled out a few things just on fuel use, definitely within David's business. The one of the other questions is, are you able to put a Bluetooth tag onto like a higher end machine, say a dung spreader or something like that?
Yes, so the Bluetooth tags, they're just magnetic. As long as we put them somewhere where you haven't got some mud that's going to knock them off. So you just need to be a bit mindful about where they go. If you've got some mud flying off the road, off the wheels on the road, we have had one or two in the past get knocked off. But yeah, you're very flexible. They've got magnets on the back of them that allegedly, the 25 kg magnets apparently. So they're really quite strong, and they can be difficult to get off. So it's very, very simple as long as you make sure you remember to assign the tag to the correct vehicle. So if we look at all the implements, we get a list of implements. You can see which tags are on which vehicle. And so basically, if you wanted to swap them around, you just assign a tag to a set vehicle. You can tell it which vehicle's which, and it will assign the tag to it. So it's very simple to do that. And it's the same with operators. You can assign individual tags to operators.
Yeah. Okay. Another question is, amazing amount of data available from the system. Can you set up a dashboard for a smaller number of key statistics, so you don't need to break around through all the screens?
It's not customizable at that stage from that perspective, but all of the data in here is downloadable if you want to do things yourself in Excel spreadsheets, or some people are starting to play with Power BI. There are some wonderful AI engines and tools as well that are starting to come online that will allow you to drop things in, and you can create dashboards out as dropping spreadsheets in them. That's a very much evolving sector, and it staggers me at how quickly that's changing. It's not something I've properly played with, but it is something that I was going to play with data. All the data that you can export comes through in either Excel format or CSV, or you can get it through as maps from any of the maps as well. So it's very much customizable. Sorry, CSV is a comma separated variable. It's just an Excel spreadsheet essentially, separated by commas that is a common open format. So you can click on that, you can download that data, and it allows you to extract everything from there.
Yeah.
So it's very much open source. There are APIs into it as well for those that want to develop tools into it.
Yeah. No, it's good. Another couple of questions. Is it available as an app?
Yes, so you can have it as an app on your phone, and that side of it is evolving well. The UK market has been a bit slower to get apps. The German market was very much Android focused, so the iPhone app became available later or earlier this spring, and you've got the ability on your phone to be able to see everything more or less in the same way that you can on the app, on your laptop or on a web browser. It's not quite as user friendly yet as the desktop solution, but it is getting there, and you can use it as a solution, and there will be better abilities in there to input data as well. So when we're trying to assign products to jobs and things, you'll be able to do that in the app, or perhaps even fuel use in there. When you fill up with fuel at a filling station, you can put in how much diesel you might have put in, so you've got a proper record as well.
Yeah, no, it is. I've got it on the app as well, and it's like you say, it's maybe it's quite so user friendly, but it's still quite an interesting way to look at the data. The last question is quite a controversial one, so I'm not sure if you're going to be able to answer this, Clive. Uh, is it showing up the most efficient tractors, and if so, which are they?
um, it would do if I had enough of them together in one place to see them. However, I haven't done a lot of analysis on that, and well, rightly or wrongly, I've not wanted to poke a bear.
Good. David, I'll just bring you in as well. Um, so we've had this deployed on the farm since sort of the end of May. There was a few supply issues, so it wasn't quite in for the start of the spring work. I know sitting down with you, we've gone through some of the figures, some of the information it's gathering, and it's certainly been interesting discussing it anyway. So, what have you kind of found has been the main things that you've seen from the information so far?
Well, it's quite mind blowing if you sit down and sort of take everything, all the data in. I mean, I think realizing how much fuel you're using traveling back and forth, maybe it really emphasizes if land's too far away, or what's the optimum range you can have land from maybe your dryer, or where you can cart muck to before it becomes unfeasible. But going back a wee bit, I was a monitor farm, a climate change monitor farm for 5 or 6 years, and I found in the farm the two biggest bills in my farm were fuel and fertilizer. And this Exatrek thing can obviously address both those to make it far more detailed, to see how much waste there is, or how much savings there is, or it's yeah, it's taken it to the next level. So yeah, but I've had it on since May, but I'm still very much learning how to use it, and I think I'm a bit of this dinosaur in that respect. But the information you're getting back is certainly making me take a lot more notice, and I've got a son here as well that I think this will be right up his street for going forward.
I think one of the interesting things is that the information's recorded there, and that's where it's good. You can then go back and see what's happened rather than somebody in to try and write down how much fuel they've used or keep note of how much the tractor's using. It's all there and recorded, so it's certainly been helpful to go back through some of the data as the year has progressed. And the idea is, if we carry this, when we carry this on through to the next year, we'll be able to see how much fuel there is used for specific crops and growing those crops as we go forward. So we're still finding our feet with it. We're still learning with it. Clive's still trying to keep us right with what information we can get and where it is. So it's but it's certainly given us more information than we had before, and it's all information that is coming for the tractor every day. It's just a way of recording that information. So no, so that's good. Clive, if you could stop sharing, I will just another couple of little headline slide just to finish this bit off, and then we'll be on to our next speaker. So you should be able to see the beacons on the pieces of equipment with a bit of luck. So some of the things, just the headline benefits from what we've seen so far is far better trucking of fuel, the use and the cost associated with it. The ability to track costs per farm or per ton or per field or per crop. And Clive's is telling us that there's going to be some improvements with that in the next wee while with the dashboard. So it'll be able to lump that kind of cost together a bit more. As David mentioned, it allows us to evaluate whether jobs such as haulage is cost effective, or whether we need to think about whether lorries should be used for hauling stuff. And as I said, I think the ability to look back and review over a season is really helpful. Like I say, it's all information that the tractor's recording or is sending out all the time. It's just Exatrek gives the ability to collect that information up. Is there any final questions? There is a couple more. Clive, another couple of questions. Does the app work offline? I often don't have coverage in the field. You're on mute, Clive.
Yes, it does. The system's got I think it's an 8 GB memory. So if it doesn't have signal, it will record everything that the tractor does. And then when it does get signal, it will then upload it.
Good. Another couple of questions. Dave, have you seen big differences in fuel use between fields, parts of fields, or types of cultivations?
Yes. Your fuel consumption seems to relate to whether you're going up or down a hill, whether you've got free land or heavy land or land in between. We've also got hydrogen in our tractors, which you're supposed to have a 23% fuel saving. We haven't really tested that yet, but that's the plan for next year. We're going to switch them on and off and see if fuel consumption can be ramped up or not. But yeah, obviously some machines or some practices are better than others. So yeah, it'll be a good way of exploring that.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the things, Clive, we were looking at a little bit earlier on was the difference between the fuel use for ploughing and the fuel use for a one pass was very, very similar. Off the top of my head, I think it was like 16 litres and was it 16 litres a hectare? No, was it 16 litres an hour? It was one of the two.
The 17 litres an hour was the ploughing, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. So they were very, very similar. And then there was some of the stuff with the CLC cultivators. And I think it was about 14 or something. I think maybe
Yeah.
So there was a difference that way. We are starting to see that.
But David, did it not vary in parts of the field as well, where the soil was different and there was slopes? You did see it drop to 13 and then back up to 16. And
yeah. So there was a bit of variation within that as well. Right. There's a couple of other questions. One was round about differences between tractor drivers. We're not really seen that in the data we've got probably so far, because X driving most of the time on the tractors. But I know in other instances there has been differences between operators and how they perform. So I think it could show that in time once it was data gathered.
The operator one's always a frosty one, because operators don't want to think they're being watched all the time. So I haven't got that many users. I've only got one big client that's got a tag for all the operators, but they haven't implemented them all yet.
Yeah. And another one, just the last comment on here, the ability to to have accurate data and therefore hopefully more accurate costs will be very important, especially for the likes of contractors, and be able to justify to customers why charges need to be what they are. So yeah, it's a way of recording that sort of information as well. Good. Time's marching on, so thank you very much, Clive and David, for running through Exatrek and showing us what it's all about. We're just going to now move on to our second speaker this evening, who is Andrew Williamson from Highland Autosteer. So I will stop sharing Andrew. Andrew's camera has decided to stop working. That's a polite way of saying it's not working. And so he's unfortunately not got his camera on, but he will run through his slides on his sideline business of Highland Autosteer and open our GPS.
Thanks, David, and thanks for having me on. Can you guys see my screen okay there?
Yeah, can see Andrew.
Can, cool. Okay, yeah. So Highland Autosteer, what is the sort of crack with that? So part of the two things that I'm kind of interested in and that I help people out with is free RTK and then the Autosteer Ag Open GPS, as David was mentioning earlier on. So the free RTK, how did this come about? I'll just kind of whiz through this because this is kind of a bit about me, really. So grew up in a 200-acre farm near Nigg in the 70s, 80s, but somehow ended up working in IT. I'm actually the principal cloud engineer at Scottish Water. On the IT side, because I'm always sort of having a look around, you know, finding out what's out there, I'd heard about Ag Open GPS, thought it sounded really good. So I downloaded the simulator, didn't really know how to use it, so I threw it aside and forgot about it. But I noticed that some people were using a certain affordable GPS chip to set up their own RTK base stations for it. So I've got friends in the farming world still, and I do a little bit of driving here and there, and I thought that might make a fun challenge. You know, I'll set one of these bases up and see if it works. So I overspent on the GPS because I didn't really know what I needed, used an existing PC, set it up, and it turned out it was no challenge at all because all of France had done this work already. All these dots you're seeing here on the screen, these are free RTK stations in France and now Hungary. I pretty much know the guy who's almost single-handedly responsible for Hungary there. You can also see up in the north coast here, Scotland, of course, we've got plenty of free RTK stations up here. So on the left-hand side of this screen, tell me if I'm going too fast, by the way, I kind of feel like I am. So these are some of the free stations that I've been involved in. My own one here is Beloch, which is Ball, which is underneath Drum. You can't really see it. A lot of the blue ones I've helped people set up. Some of the red ones are other free ones that are available. And on the right-hand side, these are some of the more well-known commercial providers. I won't name them, but you can probably guess who some of them are. So this North of Scotland dealer here has, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 stations covering the north of Scotland. This particular one here's got a few, but they're very scattered about. You know, if you're in Inverness, they're absolutely no use to you. If you're basically west of Elgin, or probably even west of Huntly, they're pretty much no good to you. This is the nation's, I would imagine, leading provider. And as you can see, they've got a fair bit more coverage. They are a bit more out there. So just a bit of a refresher in case anyone's wondering how RTK works and how I can do this. So my house has a base station on it. It pulls in GPS locations. Now that GPS antenna is at a position, of course, that never moves. It's a static base. And what it does is it captures the information saying GPS currently says I'm here, now it says I'm here, now it says I'm here, and it compares that difference to what the current view is. So I'll just bring up a couple of stations. You're actually watching these live right now. So the one on the left is that fine fellow, Stuart Morrison, down in Alford. And this is myself here. What we're looking at, the black cross is where the base is. The blue dot is where GPS says it is. What you'll probably notice straight away is that they're not at the same place. So the problem is as the GPS signals come down from space, I'll just switch back to my wee screen here, they get delayed as they come down through the different levels of the atmosphere, the ionosphere and troposphere, they get delayed. And because the location is calculated from the GPS being in a certain position at a certain time, if there's a delay, then that location ends up being wrong. So what happens is my base sends that correction information up to what's called a caster. So a caster is just, you can think of it as a website. Your tractor out in the field, it connects to that website, pulls those corrections down, applies them to its GPS, and that's how it gets a correct location. RTK is as simple as that. It sounds like it's a very complicated thing when the dealer's, trying to justify a £700-800 a year envelope that's just popped through your door. It's all just maths. That's all it is. And the system that this runs on is incredibly simple to set up. So people often wonder as well, how far away can you be from the base? So an accuracy that's often quoted is 2 points per million. So 1,000,000 centimeters, that's 10 kilometers. You can expect 2 centimeters accuracy. At 20 kilometers, 4 centimeters, and so on. But it doesn't always quite work out quite that cut and dried. A reasonably decent figure to aim for as a maximum is about 35 kilometers from the base. Okay. So if you want to set one up, what do you need? And what's it going to cost? So the little computer is about £35. The antenna is €90. And the GPS module is €172. And because you buy these from Spain, you've got to get the Brexit tax as well. But all in, you're looking at less than £300. Or to put it another way, less than half of 1 year's single RTK subscription. And you can push this out to as many tractors as you like, and it doesn't cost you a thing once that's done. What skills would you need to make it? Well, you buy the parts and you follow the video. I made a video for this because I was fed up with people trying to pay me money to do something that I thought was ridiculously easy. So I gave the information away. I'd originally written a guide and people would read it and say, sorry, mouth was drying up there. People would read the guide and say, look, I'm not good with computers. Could you do this for me? And I'm saying, look, seriously, read the guide. It is easy and do that. No, please, I'll pay you. So I made a video and showed them how to do it. And it's literally, you buy the parts, all the links are in the video. You connect the antenna to the GPS over USB to the computer, and the computer to your internet. Monitor's optional, you don't really need it. You download the software, you click next a few times, and you've got your own RTK station. It really is that easy. So on YouTube, if you go and search for build your own free RTK base, and I'll pop these links, all the links for this in the chat in a moment. This is the sort of thing you'll find, and it takes you through the whole process. So it really couldn't be easier. And I've got a lot of people that are using it that are dealers not far from me that are now asking customers, are you paying for RTK or are you using the free one? And quite a lot of them are just saying straight away, because they've had a good experience in the past, we'll just use the free one. And the dealers are like, yeah, no problem. We'll get you a SIM card. We'll put it in the tractor and that's you set up. And, so the dealers are very much on board with it. In some cases, there are some dealers I probably wouldn't bother talking to, and you can kind of guess who they are because they sell their own RTK subscriptions. So first of all, there is no difference in quality between what you're getting on your own base, a free one you're using for nothing, and a commercially provided base. So whether it's a commercially provided service, RTK corrections, they are maths, and it doesn't matter who does the sums. And commercial providers, I have heard this before, that one or two dealers, again, strangely enough, the ones that sell their own subscriptions, will tell you it won't work. But in some cases, those dealers' technicians are actually on the quiet telling people that, yeah, it will work. And it's not a problem at all, So what does it look like in your tractor? All you need is a SIM card. So when you buy, let's call it an essential RTK subscription from a national provider, they give you not only the data, but a SIM card. That SIM card goes in the modem in the tractor. And obviously that's part of the deal. You don't get a phone bill as well. So all you have to do is provide your own SIM card. You can get multi-network roaming ones for buttons. They're dead cheap. I was speaking to one guy who runs a fleet of 7 Fence, and he has SIM cards from simbase.com. And on that, he can go onto a web page and turn all the SIM cards off at once. For his 7 tractors, his total bill never reaches £30 a month for 7 tractors. On some systems, you can even hotspot it off your phone. So if you have one of the newer Trimble systems, that's basically an Android tablet, you can hotspot it off your phone. You don't need a SIM card. So at that point, you literally go into the settings, you change it over, and you're done. You don't have to pay for a subscription again. I've set up various web pages where you can check the status of known free casters, and you can even get an app on your phone. So what we're looking at now is my phone. So if I want to check the status of, I know this says, so if we look at Stuart's down in Ufford, I can connect to his base right now, and I can see it's working fine because data's coming in. I can see RTK messages, so I know the thing is working fine. So if I'm in the tractor and I know I'm connected to NBRN, but something's not working, I can rule the tractor out by just jumping onto this app and say, okay, the base is obviously fine, problems in the tractor, you know. I can see how many satellites it's getting, you know, maybe although it's working, perhaps it's fallen off the roof and it's only seeing half a dozen satellites instead of, you know, 39. So we get all this information. I have a web page set up, which I do believe I loaded on one of these, and it's not there. 1 second. So here we can jump on and find my nearest base station. So that's taken my position from my mobile phone. And now it's telling me that my nearest one is Balloch, as if I didn't know that already, because I'm literally about 20 meters away from it. We can see all the others. There's another status page that tells you if any of the bases are down. What you can also do is use what's called a mount point called near. And what that will do is automatically pick the base station that's nearest to you. And if that base station goes down, it'll jump to the next nearest one to you, and so on. So there's lots of ways to get around this. A good question would be, well, who do I phone if it goes wrong? Well, you don't really have to phone anyone, because you can go onto these web pages, you can pick up another one and jump on and try that. If one base goes down, chances are there's another one there. And because we have what's called multiple casters, so all of these, this is my what's called caster. That again, the caster is what receives the signal from the base and spreads it out to all the tractors. So no matter how many people connect to your base, you only send it once to the caster. Could be 1,000 people, they pull it from the caster. So if, for example, Ball here knows that disappears off the list, you know that Balloch's got a problem, and you know you can take that information. This is the Centipede one, which all of France runs on. You can use near to pick up your automatic nearest one. So there's lots of good information to find out. I know there's a lot of people who are using it already, and you know, I've asked them, you know, do you get problems? Do you get problems? No, not really. It just works, you know. And again, once it's set up, you're pretty much done. That's pretty much it, really. As I said, if there's any issues, you just swap to another base or a caster. You go into the settings in your phone, and in your tractor. One of the good things about that as well is if you're going for a national provider or you know, your dealer's network, if that one network has an issue, you're out of action until that network's fixed. Whereas because we use multiple casters here, you can just jump to another one and you're never going to be stuck. Equally, if you do like to pay for your thing and it goes down, you just jump onto one of the free ones in the meantime. Save yourself a bit of money, you know? So what do you do in the vehicle side? So a SIM card, as I was saying, now that might, what this doesn't give you, by the way, is an unlock for RTK. This is just, your tractor has to be RTK enabled already. So it's not like I can give you an RTK upgrade. That's still something you're having to pay for, unfortunately. And then all you do is you go into the settings on your tractor and you update it. I've pulled all these because Centipede's French, by the way. I've pulled these examples off. That's why all these examples are in French. So we've got John Deere here. We've got the familiar Trimble, and I'm sure you Fent guys will recognize that screen. You put the details in there for the free base, and you're literally done. That's it. It's the last bill you ever have to pay. And because you're not tied into any contracts or anything, because it's free, if somehow everything falls apart tomorrow, you just go back to paying for another one. It's not a big deal, but it never happens. You know, I've seen no big issues in the whole time it's been out. I used to use what's called a caster called RTK to go, but they proved to be a bit unreliable. I do have access to about 5 casters, but between Centipede and my own, Centipede never goes down. You may be aware that the French farmers are not ones that would settle for outages quietly. So strangely, they're pretty good at keeping the national system up and running, put it that way. And they're very open to having bases added from other countries. They're not, you know, harsh about it. They're very easy to get registered with, and they're very cool. You know, I speak to a few of the guys. There's just one problem, and that is, what are you going to do with the subscription money you've saved? So I guess you guys can you know, work that one out amongst yourselves. That's basically what FreeRTK is. It's a simple system. You can build it yourself, and not counting getting the antenna up on the roof, but you can literally get the software and the computer up and running in less time than it takes to drink a cup of coffee. If you can put a memory card in the memory card reader, which is all in the video link, and press next half a dozen times, you've got a base. So again, please do watch the video, and I'll drop the links in the chat in a wee while, and just try it. You know, even if you're sticking with a commercial provider, there's nothing to stop you going back into, you know, into your settings and just temporarily trying one of the free ones. If you don't like it, well, you know, let us know. I was actually speaking to a guy in a John Deere today, and the message set, what's called the message set that comes out, just doesn't seem to be working quite right with the John Deere, but there's alternatives for that. So we'll get that sorted. But most John Deeres these days, they don't have a problem. The older ones do, because they receive a bit too much data from these things. And that's pretty much it on FreeRTK. There's not a lot to talk about because it is a simple system. You can try it risk-free. If you don't like it, just go back, but you never will. So unless you like paying for things, of course. So I guess the main thing that people would be interested in is AgOpenGPS. So as it says there, AgOpenGPS, farmers helping farmers. So what's that about? It's a free, yes, free, open source guidance system, and it is built by farmers for farmers. Now, we've all seen that kind of slogan before: by farmers for farmers, or, you know, by engineers for engineers. And it's, you know, a heap of guys who've asked some farmers what they want. This is actually written by farmers. You know, this is why it's a great time of year, because the winter's on, and the main developer, Brian, his house is probably under about 6 foot of snow just now. It was -29 there the other days. So winter's a great time for him to crack on and come up with all the new features. You know, so literally when we say by farmers for farmers, this is not professional programmers, although some of the code is very professional. We do have some professionals polishing it up, but it is by farmers for farmers. What does open source mean? So open source means anyone can download the program, can download the plans for the PCB, they can order their own PCB, they can customize it, they can change it, they can extend it, they can do whatever they like. That's literally the agreement. It's yours to do with what you wish. If you don't know what open source is, well, you're already using it. If you've got an Android phone in your hand, Android, the operating system it runs, is open source. You can download Android, customize it, and, you know, if you were so inclined, make your own phone and put that on it. All the software, all the systems you interact with daily, whether it's Netflix, Exatrek, I would guess they use probably a lot of open source software in their systems. Everybody does, all projects do, you know, so they might be using a web framework to create their dashboard. That could be open source. Open source is everywhere. A lot of people just don't realize. So Amazon is built on it. You may have heard of Linux, which is an alternative to Windows. Open source is everywhere. It's a worldwide community of developers, contributors, and users. So when I say worldwide, the Hungarian map, I was down at Lama last week, and I met the Hungarian guys who have the agopen.shop web shop, and they're some of the developers. I'm actually one of the developers myself, so I've written code for it. I extend things. I get to play with the new toys. It's pretty cool, and it's all guys all around the world. It's not focused in any one place. There are no fees ever, no unlocks ever, no subscriptions. All new features are free. If a new feature comes out in the software tomorrow, you just download it, or you stick with what you're happy with. It's entirely up to you. You don't get pushed into upgrades. You're not told that things are like obsolete, you know, and you're going to have to upgrade. That just doesn't happen. We know. I mean, I don't know them personally, but I know of people who know people running AgOpenGPS versions that are a few years old, and it does what they need, and they're happy. We can do custom and bespoke features with it. So I myself have, like, because again, I'm one of the developers, I've actually gone to sites and people have said to me, look, I've got this Deutz and I've got this Trimble. If I did one recently, this 2250 Warrior I did recently, he had a Trimble in it, but the cost to upgrade to RTK was more than my system on FreeRTK. So I put AgOpenGPS on, And on the Trimble, he has to press the screen to engage the steering. So I wrote a bespoke firmware for it there and then that uses what's called the comfort button on the Deutz to engage. So now he doesn't have to touch that. He doesn't take his hand off the joystick. He uses the comfort button. We can use the headland management button. You can pretty much use whatever you like. But because we own all the parts, as I say, we have access to all the code and all the parts. We can change anything we like to make it do it however we want. AgOpenGPS also works with section control if you build what's called a machine board. And there's already some great work in progress supporting isobus. Things like Amazon spreaders, that's already supported, not via isobus, via CAN bus. KRM, bog bal spreaders, if you have the ZERF terminal, the big vertical grey terminal, a cable off Amazon for about £6 will get you section control and full control under AgOpenGPS. And I've seen that working. The very first one I did, the guy drove onto the headland and he presses start on the ZERF terminal. Nothing happens. So he's got his AB lines. So he turns off the headland into the work and the tractor's auto steering. When he gets over the line, the fertilizer spreader starts working. It picks up his speed. So it alters and opens the gate, shuts the gate. So he's never overdosing or underdosing the field. He gets onto the headland, it shuts off. It turns automatically, drives him along the headland, whether that headland's straight or on a curve, it follows the curve, turns him back on. Of course, the gates open again and he starts spreading. He doesn't touch a thing until the hopper's empty. He's getting accurate coverage. He's not missing. He's not underdosing. He's not overdosing. All for a £6 cable. And if you went to, the likes of KRM or whoever and wanted unlocks for that, I think it'd be a bit more than £6. The isobus team, that's another open source project. And the lead developer of that, Dan, he actually works for Case New Holland, and it took him a year to get permission from his bosses to say, look, do you mind if I do this as my side project? Now, I was out at one of my friends who I think is on this call, actually, probably about a year ago, and in his case, I connected it to the CAN bus on there, and his Lemkens seeder came up on the screen. And when I was down at Lama the other day, Balázs, the Hungarian guy, he had it working with Kuhn, fert spreaders, and something else. He had actual demonstrations running there. There's also a separate rate control app. So it can take speed and, for example, open or shut the gates on your lime spreader, things like that. And some people have even taken it really far and done customizations of the full application for tree planting. It has all the features you would expect on any of the commercials, and even some that they don't. So we have full headland management, as in it'll turn on the headland, but on some tractors, Fendt and Claas, because they have separate buttons to engage the go and end button, type of thing, it can actually press those buttons for you. So you don't even have to press a button to lift the implement and turn the PTO off and engage the PTO and drop the implement. It does it all. Auto turns on the headland, as we said. It'll do K turns, as it does for ploughing. And tool steer. We're working on tool steer. So by tool steer, what I mean is I'm working with a local farm. They have a Grimmy de-stoner. So AgOpenGPS, I just the Fendt 828, I did that the other day. So the idea is that this one PCB in the cab will control the tractor. That's already done. And then we have a second one on the de-stoner, and it'll do that. So we're going to have active tool steering. So some people have that already with sliding hitches in the US. We've sort of done that already. So this is the main interface of AgOpenGPS, sort of what it looks like. So I'll come back to that in a second, but here's just a couple of examples I've clipped off of various videos of mine. So this was, if any of you know Kevin Masson, out Lawrence Kirkway. This is his fast track. Myself and Morgan, his son, were driving about in it. You're not going to get much better than that. This is Scott planting turnips, I think that was, and it was pretty decent. And I can't remember who this was, but what you're seeing there is 0 centimeters off the line, and his average accuracy for the last 15 seconds is 4 mil. Now, to be honest, if you believe it's 4 mil, you're doing well. But, we're regularly seeing sub-centimeter accuracy over averages, and, we're sort of keeping it that way. But how are we able to do this? How does Autosteer work? It must be complicated. When I very first saw this the first time, we had a contractor on my father's farm, and he had this this massive fent there, and you give me a lift down the field in it. And of course, me being the computer guys, all these screens in there, and wow, this is amazing. And he told me what Autosteer cost, and it was tens of thousands at the time. And of course, my thought, well, of course it's expensive. How complicated is that? Satellites and steering tractors. It's got to be. But it turns out it's actually pretty easy. So in order to steer a vehicle, you need to know the following. Where am I now? So GPS will give you a location and a heading. And you need to calculate where you're going to go to follow the track, the new heading. So you need to know which way you're going to be turning. So where are the wheels pointing? You need to know where the wheels are currently pointing, ideally. So you're going to read a wheel angle sensor. That's just going to be an analog voltage, or you can pull it off the CAN bus if the tractor's steer ready on CAN bus. So now we know where we are, where we're heading, and which way the wheels are pointing. So if we're not going the right way, we need to correct that steering. So that's what we do. We subtract where the wheels are from where it needs to be, and that gives us an error. That error is then factored into, do I need to steer quickly or slowly in order to get there? Don't oversteer, don't get too wild. And it turns out it is actually that easy, So in terms of actually turning the steering wheel, some guys have done this with a 12-volt motor that physically rubs against the steering wheel. If any of you have ever seen a Trimble Easy Steer, aka the finger catcher, then you'll know what that looks like. The Kia steering motor, I actually wrote the software for that. So that's a motor that you see quite a lot of the Chinese GPS systems use. You take your steering wheel off, you fit this motorized steering wheel on, you lock it so the body can't turn, and it just turns the inside spindle, it turns the steering column. You can do it over hydraulic. So if your tractor has a steering valve, but it's not on the CAN bus, you can drive the hydraulic valve. Or you can send a CAN bus command. And again, we're just turning that fast or slow depending on the amount of error. In other words, the difference between where the wheels are pointing and where they should be pointing. So what does it look like? So down the bottom here, next to Mr. McCallum's lovely knees, we've got the Kia steering motor. So not very bulky. I fitted this to quite a few combines. It works really nicely. Combines are an interesting one, by the way, because we now, as I found out this year, I don't actually bother with a wheel angle sensor anymore, because we have one that takes the G-force and lateral acceleration into account and infers from that whether you're turning left or right. And it works really well for combines. You wouldn't go seeding in it in a tractor, but it works really well for combines. No problem with that at all. Here, this is a Massey 8S. So I'm tapping into two CAN buses here. So one for the joystick to find out the buttons on the joystick, and one for the valve itself. In the cab, you're going to have one of these motor PCBs. So this one has this little thing on it here is for turning the tractor via hydraulic valves or driving a motor. We have our IMU at the top, which gives us pitch and roll. We've got the computer and we've got the GPS module, or you can have two GPS modules, which will give you pitch and roll that way. This is a board of my own design. This is purely CAN bus and Kia only, so it can't drive hydraulic valves. And the sort of type of box it'll be in, I've just 3D printed these. The screens I get secondhand off eBay, and that little thing there is your antenna. You'll never see it from the road. It's not, unless you want to paint it, green and yellow and hang a "Please Steal Me" sign off it. Nobody will ever know it's there. They're about £70, the antenna. So if anybody runs off with it, let them have it. And that's pretty much it. So I just thought I would show you what AOG actually looks like here. So here, the other cool thing about it is it has a simulator. So if you go for it, you can sit on the couch, watch all the AgOpen GPS tutorial videos, which yours truly made, and you can actually sit and paint in little pretty pictures with your tractor. And you can learn all the features, everything you can do on a real tractor, bar tune the steering, you can do in the simulator. So you can learn about how to use tram lines, how to put headlands in, how to put what else? Yeah, I can't even think how to drop flags for stones that you see when ploughing, how to come back to them later. All the features are there. You can load in your ISO XML files from Fendt, John Deere, any of the big names. So if you're following, work that somebody's put in with a commercial system, you don't have to put your own AB line in and hope you're matching them up right. You can just take their file. You can have multiple tracks. I'll just slow this down a bit just now. What we're going to see here is as the lines cross, it's going to start turning sections off. And this can also work Even if you don't have a section control board, if you imagine you've got a sprayer, and let's just say you've got 16 little switches for your sections, this will tell you when to turn each one on and off, or you can just hit the button on the joystick or however you do it. So it's pretty useful for getting your ins and outs matching, and again, making sure you don't overdose. It'll tell you when to lift or drop the machine as well if you turn that on. And yeah, the system just works. It is really cool. So we'll just leave that working away in the background. I can sort of show you some of that a bit more if you want. I'll go into more detail on it. But the real world benefits, no overlaps, no leftover slivers as you get with the mower and the combine, where you've got to go back because of that guess you made about where you're going has resulted in a 1 foot patch that you need to do, and the combine's picking up the straw from the previous one, or it's pushing it along the way, and it's just a pain in the backside. You don't have to shunt on the headland because, of course, what you can do is you can skip lanes. So if you imagine this is a much smaller implement, now we can tell it we want to skip one. You can maybe see at the top here, this green line, that's showing us where it's going to turn. So we're skipping 2. You can also have it turn in back on itself. So if we just leave it like that, it'll come down here and then come back up the side. And basically, you'll be finished this field in about 3 downs, but there'll be big, skip lanes, and you can go back and do them. But if you hit this button here, it'll actually go back and fill them in, which is pretty nice. So you don't, you don't lose work. If you're not having to shunt on the headlands and you're getting the full width of your machine, of course, you're going to work quicker. You're saving time, fuel, machine tool, wear and tear. It's less stress for the driver, both mental and physical. One of the guys that was very early with me, Donald, he was saying he had a shoulder pain for years, and now he doesn't have it just because of the tractor doing the work. There's no over-under application of products. One customer, Willie, out at Keith, I did his T7, and then he saved 3.5 tons of fertilizer on his first application. That's more than half of what I charged him for Ag Open GPS. So by the time he put his second application on, it had paid for itself, and he was in pocket. Now, whether you go for Ag Open GPS, whether you build it yourself, whether you ask me to supply and fit one, or whether you go for the more expensive ones, I don't think it makes commercial sense not to be using Autosteer in some manner, because 3.5 ton, I had no idea how much that is, but I think Willie said it was in the region of £1,200-1,300. You guys will be able to correct me, of course. That's a hell of a lot of money. So a job that he's been doing for years, and he's saved 3.5 ton just because he had the GPS. That's pretty good. Even the simpler jobs like filling a trailer, which is, of course, is the very first job you do under your, probably your father's watchful eye. It's ridiculously easy. You can pull that next to the combine, and all you've got to do is look out the back and work the throttle, and you're not going to end up tramping that straw that's just, a meter off the side of a meter off the left-hand side of the wheel, or you're not going to, you're not barreling in towards the header. It makes the simple jobs, just so easy. Again, we've headland automation, section control, rate control, isobus integration, all achievable, and you don't get the unlocks. There's just isn't any, Specialized customization. So one guy, this is a much older version of Ag Open GPS, by the way, that he wrote this into, which is why the interface looks a bit different, but fundamentally it's the same. So they use this for tree planting, a local Christmas tree place. And what they do is they have 4 corkscrews on the back, drills, and they go forward about 80 centimeters. It's an 80 centimeter grid. And this tells them when to stop and drop the thing down. And I'm actually working to provide a pneumatic brake pedal actuator, so the tractor will drive itself. You would not believe how tedious that job is. It's every 80 centimeters crawling along. You've no sooner taken your foot off the brake, you're standing on it, you're holding it there, you're dropping the thing, you're lifting it. It's the most mind-numbingly boring job I've ever seen in my life. So if we can automate that, all the better for them. And all it does is it beeps when they have to drill a hole. But of course, human errors in that, we're all going to be a bit slower, a bit quicker, so they're never going to line up. If the system's doing it itself, it's going to be bang on. This was something I did while bored one night. Joystick steering. So some of you might have seen the joystick steer on the new Fendt combines. There's probably other things out there you can get them for. And all I did was, you can actually see this on TikTok. turn this left, the steering wheel turns left, or not turn it left, lean it right, the steering wheel turns right. And that could be done on Canvas or any of the systems. The only reason I haven't sort of taken it out and done anything with it is because, you know, I would have to think about how to mount it to the arm and stuff like that. And, you know, it's the idea is there if somebody wants to do it. You know, I'm quite happy to do it for someone. Be great for loader work as well, I think. I know a lot of tractors have speed steer now, but, you know, even that, you know, if you can spin the tractor around just by, you know, literally your thumb, you know, that's got to be an attractive proposition. Oh yeah, now here's a cool thing. So 1 second. This was something I got sent from Balash today, and hopefully this is going to not print. I don't know if this is going to be too jerky, but this is the Amazon screen here. And what he's looking at is this is the rate control application going over the top of it, and you can see it's whatever it's doing there, metering out and you know, changing whatever this part was supposed to be on. Sorry, I've got no idea what this is. It's obviously some sort of metering unit of something. But yeah, so he's kind of working with that. He's a really smart guy, him. He's really taking it forward. And this is a very poor video showing isobus integration. I don't know what that is, but it is a genuine machine. This section here that's yellow has turned on isobus for that section there. That's what this dark blue is. I know it's really hard to see, but the isobus integration's coming along really well. I have heard tale of people who, somebody I was speaking to at Llama, the dealer updated the tractor's screen and that knocked out their sprayer or spreader. It was unable to work anymore. So they got them back and they downgraded the screen and it came back to life. Compatibilities with isobus are a bit of a nightmare. There's the AEF database, which is an industry thing. But the problem is if you've got kit that doesn't work or has stopped working, you're at the mercy of your manufacturers. So whether that's John Deere or whoever or Cavernaland or whatever, if they decide it's a low priority problem for them to fix, you could be waiting months. So the advantage with the open source stuff is we can capture logs from all of this, go to Dan and the crew on the isobus team and go, this doesn't work. Might even get a fix the same day. You know, so this is one of the situations where isobus wins. We can capture all the things. We don't have to justify the cost to the bean counters in finance and say, okay, we need to spend a bit of time and get a team on this. We just crack on and do it, you know? So again, this is on one of my videos here. So this is a demonstration from a Fendt, and what it's doing on the headland is we have sequences programmed in. And this is, I can't remember what the guy set this at. This was Gavin at Craggy Farm. And all this is, it's just lifting and dropping something. So you can see on the video, when we go over the headland, it starts playing back this sequence, and when we come back off, it plays the other one. And it's so nice. It's really nice. I also did a video with this, with the ploughing and the K-turns. You can plough an entire field by doing two things on the headland: shuttle to reverse and shuttle forwards. And you can plough a whole field. The reason being, when you come onto the headland, the tractor automatically lifts the plough and turns it over. It starts turning left on itself automatically. You shuttle to reverse, the tractor knows it's going backwards, so now it starts turning right. You shuttle to forwards, it now knows it's going forwards, it starts turning left again, you're back in the furrow, and it automatically drops the plough. So it's automated the whole thing, and literally all you have to do at the end of each row is forwards, backwards, or backwards, forwards, actually. And that would be it. In an ideal world, of course, you know, I mean, I can't imagine there's many ploughmen alive who'd allow that layer of control over ploughing, you know. Farmers, nature's problem solvers. So in the group, it's not just Autosteer and stuff like that. People turn up with little side projects they've done. So Stuart, I think, was on the call earlier. Claas sellers were wanting a fortune for a modem. This is less than a tenth of the cost. What this does is this connects to your, in this case, a Claas S10 terminal we used, but it does work with Trimble and probably others. And all it does is it uses your phone as a hotspot to pull down the RTK signal and put it out the serial plug. That's literally all its job is that and nothing else. So less than a tenth of it, bit of a no-brainer, really, you know. As far as I'm aware, Jack and Stuart aren't having any issues with it. It works really well. I know other guys that use it, you know, and it's a great community to be in. There's Telegram, which is like WhatsApp, but you don't have to give phone numbers, so it can be all just anyone anywhere. And there's always somebody in there or on the Ag Open GPS forum. They've come up with this cool thing and they're showing people it. And the best part is they're giving away the design for nothing. It is literally farmers helping farmers. It's a great community to be involved in. So where to get more information? So I've set up a free RTK and a Highland Autosteer page on Facebook. There's the Highland Autosteer at gmail.com. There's the Telegram channel, Ag Open GPS International. There's the discourse forum. I can put all these links in the chat in a minute, by the way. On the farming forum, which I'm sure some of you are quite probably have seen that website. There's a precision farming section in there where myself and Andy26 and various others, we help people with their Autosteer projects. Andy's actually helped the YouTuber Tom Lamb, who I was chatting to at Llama the other week. And yeah, it's a very helpful community. There's the Ag Open GPS channel on YouTube, and there's my own TikTok, which is Highland Autosteer, and I don't do anywhere near as many videos as I probably should. Usually by the time I'm finished, I just want to get home and it's dark. But yeah, that's pretty much it, I think. So is there any questions that anyone would maybe like me to go over in a bit more detail or...
There doesn't appear to be anything so far. Has anybody got any questions to just pop them in the Q&A? I think that's been a brilliant overview of Ag Open GPS and how it can work for people. Here's a question, I think.
In terms of numbers, by the way, I'm up to about 65 tractors and combines, and I haven't had any back. So I also run a WhatsApp group where a lot of these people that I've sold system to are in it. And, because, I do sort of, have my own day job at the moment, although it's only 3 days a week. And I say, if ever I can't get back to you, just ask in there. You'll get a bit of peer help from one of the other guys. Can someone remind me how to put a boundary in? And somebody will be along to answer you, but it's very low traffic. Hardly anybody ever says anything, which either means they've all thrown it in a hedge or they're getting on with it. So...
good. Right, here's one. This amazing presentation, Andrew. You describe simple, low-cost solutions, but us ornery cheels struggle with the terminology and tech. Do you have capacity to help lots of folks set up Autosteer, for example?
So I do help a lot of people on the Telegram channel, on the discourse, the website there, and on the farming forum. But people, building their own systems, I don't really have a lot of time to help them with that. But that's kind of the service I offer, is that, sometimes I will help. Like I was speaking to somebody just earlier on there who's having a problem with a John Deere he's got. But if I was to spend my day answering everybody fitting their own systems, I'd probably be struggling. It's not to say I'll turn anyone away, of course. I mean, I'm always happy to speak to people about it and give them a bit of advice, but I wouldn't say it was open for every single build that's going on out there. Like I say, I would never get anything done.
No, I suppose the way you've set the thing up is that you allow people to build their own things, and then you might help troubleshoot a bit with some of the finer detail, maybe with what they're wanting to do.
That is the hardest part, is the steering tuning. It's because we can control so many different systems. See, if you buy a Trimble for your John Deere, the dealer comes out, they have a profile for that tractor, they set it up, everything's working. We kind of can't really do that because we could be steering literally a lawnmower with a steering motor. We could be steering, a brand new Fendt 1050 over canvas. We have to cater for everything. There's a lot of controls there that we can set up and tune, and that's one of the great things about it, is that it's so tunable. The worst thing about it is it's very tunable. And the problem is, if you start whizzing these sliders about all over the place, you can make an absolute mess of it and get absolutely nowhere. So a lot of people ask me to sell kits, but I don't really want to do that. I'd rather come out, fit it for you, get it working, show you how it works, and then support you afterwards. So that's kind of what I sort of offer with it. I don't really like sending kits out, and I actually send them to Andy, the guy in the farming forum, and say, look, buy one off that guy, and he's actually selling them for, about what I fit them for. So I don't think you're losing out there, really,
Good. Just another question. Is there a limit to the age of tractor that you can retrofit?
If it's got a steering wheel, you can fit.
Yeah.
And it doesn't even have to have a steering wheel. I mean, I've actually seen a guy do one of these mowers it's like for hillsides in Austria, if you can imagine that sort of thing. Like a not side steered, it's literally for going sideways on slopes, and it's got spiked steel wheels, and he's adapted it to work for that. But I was going to put it on my 35X just for the crack. But I would need power steering on it because the motor wouldn't be too happy trying to turn a steering wheel if I wasn't moving. But literally, you can fit it to anything. So there's actually, in fact, I'll just bring it up while we're talking. 1 second. There's also on YouTube. Have a look at what's called the Ag Open GPS Showcase. So I make all the. Let's see. I'm getting. I asked a while back about has anyone got any nice videos to sort of show how good this thing is, and I got sent them from all over the world. And some of them, a lot of the Eastern European guys, they have these old Belarus things, and some of the most bizarre looking tractors you can imagine. If it's got a steering wheel, you can fit it. That's the bottom line.
Yeah. Excellent. Right. 2 last questions, and then I'm conscious of time, so we'll wrap it up there. But how far away are we from full driverless possibility, retrofittable to various brands? I believe Valtra
Not Tim compatible.
Not Tim compatible.
Yeah, so that's been done. So Brian, way back in his days, again, the inventor of Ag Open GPS, he's actually got a video on YouTube, and I think it's about 4 years old. So he's a Canadian farmer. He's there in this big, 8-wheeled thingy with his huge grain cart behind him and the wide sower, and he's got a 40 or 50 series John Deere rolling behind him, and it's all controlled from his phone. So this tractor turns off, he sort of starts it going, and then he wanders off, and the tractor goes and does its thing. All he's got to do is make sure he stays ahead of it with the seeder. But he says I had to take it apart. I couldn't relax. I was just getting, I was just getting a bit panicky. But you see this guy here, he's not even in the cab. He's running along the thing there.
Yeah. And this kind of answers the last question. In theory, could you set up a tractor for us to run autonomously, i.e. no driver, for very simple jobs?
So
I think that video
if it's a canvas tractor, you can't, because we speak canvas, the language of the tractor. We're not doing anything dodgy to sort of hack it or anything. We literally speak to the valve the same way Vario Guide or whatever or Green Star does. So if you were to get out of the seat, the tractor would stop the steering and in all likelihood come to a stop. I'm not saying if you put a bag of tatties on there that it would just carry on. And I'm certainly not, I certainly wouldn't be somebody who would be, telling you to fit it and get out the cab. But, once I'm off the plot, I've gone, who knows what people are doing? But yeah, absolutely. Autonomously, yes, you absolutely could. If I fit it to 35X, there'd be absolutely nothing to stop me hopping off the minute I set it going.
Yeah. Obviously, health and safety applies within that as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. All the guys that are not in the cab here, they're very much less than walking speed, but accidents do happen with that speed as well, as we all know. So,
but it is, in theory, it is doable.
Absolutely, yeah. Again, canvas would be not even an exception if you weighted the seat, but I'm not gonna suggest that as a good idea.
Yeah. Good. Well, thank you very much. That's been really interesting. Just to see some of the solutions that you've come up with and a different take on providing GPS on farm.
Yeah. Just for figures, incidentally, I mean, I'm fitting canvas full systems for just over £2,000. So that's just over, probably in the region of 3 years RTK subscription on a typical tractor, which I hope nobody's going to be paying anymore, because please do try the free one. You'll never go back. But yeah, so it's not a lot of money. The ones with the steering motor, you can add on about £400 or £500 to that, because the steering motor's expensive. But that's fully fitted, fully supported. So I know a lot of vendors don't give you the prices, but why hide behind it? There's a guy there running at 5mm accuracy.
Excellent. Right, if that's all the questions,
I was hoping for more than that, actually. He was all asleep the rest of you. Was that what happened?
I think folk are maybe just taking it all in. So it's good. No, thank you very much, and thank you to Clive and to David as well for for speaking tonight, and to Andrew. That brings our webinar to a close. Just a reminder to all that if you're interested in the livestock health, the webinar for it is next Wednesday night, the same time, 7 to 8:30. And the link to register is on the same link as was for tonight's meeting. So if anybody's got any questions, if you want to find out more about the One Agritech project, then just Google One Agritech and you'll find all the information there. There is some more stuff coming up in the next wee while, and we will bring the webinar to a close. So just thank you to everybody for coming along tonight. I hope your sofa's been comfy, and I hope we've managed to enlighten you a little bit around about the Exatrek system and some of the solutions that there is for GPS. So thank you all very much, and we'll bring the webinar to a close. Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you.